Welcome back to the DFS Army season-long off-season fantasy football podcast. I am at Alan Seslowski, aka Long Sez, back with my friend, special guest Chris Felicetta. How you doing, my friend?
I am doing wonderful this morning, man. How about you?
All right. It's as I told you before, by popular demand, the fans were coming in asking when I was going to have you back on, and you know how much I love your analysis. So I'm glad that you're joining me again for this off-season edition. We love fantasy football. If you're not thinking about it in February, what kind of a football fan are you?
Not as hardcore as you, that's for sure, man.
I disagree with that. What's it called? You just have a different approach. But what we want to talk about today is I have a whole slew of topics that I thought would be perfect to ask you, since you do a lot of writing for fantasy football, including your blog that you did last year for Bestball, your Bestball Chronicles for Rotogrinders. Why don't you first tell people a little bit about what you did last year before we get into the questions I want to ask you this year?
Well, I was really intrigued by the draft contest that they were running, the national championship, $1 million championship of Bestball. So I went pretty hard at that. I put I think maybe 45 entries into that. I did a handful in the week 5 version, did a handful in the week 9 version. And I thought it'd be an interesting thing to do a blog, kind of a little running blog on Rotogrinders, talking about showing the results of my drafts, and then kind of breaking down where the value was changing and some of the different perspectives and some of the different strategies you could use. So I'll pin that on my Twitter account if anybody wants to go back and take a look at that. It's kind of interesting. You could see where I was right on things. You could see where I was wrong on things. Like one example, Aaron Jones was my most owned running back, which was obviously a big win because I consistently got him in the 3rd round. And I was actually looking back at that blog today when I knew I was coming on with you. And I even at one point, in one of them, I said I took Lenny Fournette over Aaron Jones just because I had so much Aaron Jones. And in retrospect, I guess when you have a lean you're really strong on, I was high on Aaron Jones. I should have just took more Aaron Jones. But
yeah, I agree with that. And of course, it's easy once you're right to say that. I should have gone more, because the guy that I felt pretty strongly about last year was Joe Mixon. And ultimately, I feel like I was vindicated because he had a great run at the end of last season. But for most of the fantasy season, he didn't produce, whether that was his fault or someone else. So I did do the all-in, and it didn't pay off. I like a little diversification, especially when you're doing 45 best balls like you did. Yeah. But yeah, and Leonard Fournette wasn't a bad one last year either.
No, okay. He was fine. He was good early, but it kind of tailed off at the end. And on the other side, I think we're going to get into this a little bit later, as one of the the benefits. There's the benefits and the costs to drafting early for the psychos like us that love it. My most owned quarterback for a good portion of it was Andrew Luck. I loved Andrew Luck, where he was going anywhere rounds 5 through 8. I thought with the addition of Paris Campbell, I thought he was poised for a big season. And then when he suddenly retires, I owned him in 10 out of 40 teams. And then I'm like, those 10 teams are essentially drawing dead. So
those were dead. Those were dead before it started. And you know that, and you can look at the Tyreek Hill situation from last year and draw the same conclusions. I was so pumped to get him in the 6th, 8th, 9th round when it started, and that didn't help me much because of injuries. So it does cut both ways.
Yeah.
Yep. All right. Well, today I want to talk a little bit about Bestball to start off with. And these Bestball contests, for those of you who hear us talk about it a lot but aren't sure what that is Bestball is an off-season draft that you do now anytime up until the season. And you draft 20 rounds approximately. And then the players, you set it and forget it. There's no waiver wire. There's no trading. You just draft your team across the roster requirements. And the computer software automatically inserts the best players week to week into your lineup. The last year, draft.com ran them. They're no longer around. The company that I tend to play a lot on is bestball10.com. They have a great contest. You pay $10, and the top 3 usually get rewarded. They have different contests. And also, if you're worried that you don't have time to draft in the offseason, there's an 8-hour timer clock. So you don't have to ever worry about missing your pick. And they also have shorter timers as well. All right. So some of the guys I want to talk to you about, and I'm interested on your take, is what do you think? Just, you haven't jumped into the best plays yet. I've done 3. in your mind, who are the top 5 picks just off the top of your head? Who do you think should be going 1 through 5 in best balls this season?
Top of my head, I know we've talked a little bit about this. I think there's so much that wide receiver is so deep that I think it's so advantageous to take 2 running backs early. So the top 5 off my head is obviously CMC 1. I would go Saquon 2nd. I think he showed that once he got back from the ankle sprain, he's the guy that we saw as a rookie. I would go him 2nd. I think Dalvin Cook is probably at this point I would take 3rd. Kamara is an interesting one. I think Zeke and Dalvin Cook, I think 3 or 4. I haven't come to a hard opinion one way or the other on that. And I think off the top of my head, I'd probably go Kamara 5. I know you own him in the 1 season long league that weren't together, and he was a bit of a disappointment down the stretch. And I owned him in my other big league. Big money league, and he killed me. I took him 4th overall, which seemed like the consensus pick. But I do think he is due for positive touchdown regression this year.
Right, and that's really what the difference was. He had the same number of catches Alvin Kamara did. He had, the efficiency was still there. It's just one year he had 15, 18 touchdowns, and last year he had only a handful of single-digit touchdowns. I mean, that really is the difference, which is also what scares me about Aaron Jones. With his 19 touchdowns. I mean, I'm not saying Aaron Jones is going to get 4 touchdowns, but, there's certainly a possibility he gets 9,
Yeah, definitely. And then that's 10 touchdowns off his total. I believe in Aaron Jones is one of those, like, he passes the eye test. I always think he has, even when he wasn't getting the lion's share of the work from Jamal Williams. So that's why I was so confident to make him my most owned running back last year. But I don't think even the biggest Aaron Jones advocate could say he's not due for a negative touchdown regression. Is he really going to go 19? Like that seems almost impossible to forecast that. So, well, what would, like, if you had him as 10, let's say he gets 10 touchdowns this year, is he? I think he's a first round pick in fantasy. Yeah, I think he's still somewhere in that maybe like 7 to 10 range. Is where I would go early on Aaron Jones.
The DFS Army preliminary season-long rankings have him at 1.7, but we made the case on a previous podcast, anytime at pick 6 or later, he's in play. He could fall to the 2nd round in a wide receiver heavy draft, but yeah, we're on board there. All right, top 5 picks in fantasy. I agree with you that CMC is going to be the consensus number 1 overall player for sure. Now, I also had Barkley at number 2. I just saw some rankings come out over at Establish the Run, Evan Silva's company. He has Dalvin Cook as 2 early on. I have Dalvin at 4. It's, listen, there's no question that the talent is there, but we both agree that there is some form of at least a perceived elevated injury risk, which is why I have Zeke at 3. Not only is Zeke, productive year in and year out, even if he had a disappointing year, but that guy just never even shows up on the injury report.
No, Zeke is a model of health, man. Like, for a guy that the only concern, was last year was the holdout thing, but now that's behind him. And I don't think you're not worried about Dak not being there, right? You're assuming that Dak's going to be, whether it's franchise tag or a new contract, he's going to be there 100%, right?
Absolutely. I would say if for some reason, let's just say the improbable happens, that Dak isn't there, that's because they've upgraded.
Yeah.
Which is, again, I don't think that's likely to happen. I certainly think it's going to be Dak, but yeah. So that is, for sure. So we agree Elliott's safe. Now, someone who, a running back that's polarizing, that is going in the top 5 of the both drafts that I participated in, but I don't have him in my top 5, is Derrick Henry in a PPR format. Give me your take on Derrick Henry. I know you were always a fan of his. Without the pass catching, we can't really project him to ever have more than 25 catches.
No, that's the killer. I mean,
right. So talk about, do you see Henry as a top 5-6 fantasy pick?
I don't like, and I love Derrick Henry, and I think it's also, I think Tennessee doesn't go full throttle on him until like the last third or quarter of the season, it seems, the last 2 years. So it's like you're not even getting the best of Derrick Henry until late in the season and playoff times. And without the receptions, we all assume he's going to be back in Tennessee, but they could lose. I think they're most likely going to lose Conklin, one of their 2 star tackles, is known as like the top free agent on the market. Now, do you believe these rumors that Brady could end up there in Tennessee?
I mean, is it possible? Sure. I don't think it's likely. I've already made a rant that I thought that it's being underreported, but I think that well, first of all, let's start with the favorite is always for him to stay in the place that he is.
I agree. Yeah.
And even the online books have him at that New England's the favorite to stay, but if he leaves, I think Tampa is one of the possible likely destinations, because if he leaves, why is he leaving? He's leaving because he wants to take a shot at a Super Bowl without Bill Belichick. Brady does. And who's got better, ready-to-go weapons than Tampa Bay?
Tampa's weapons are ridiculous. That would be the perfect spot for him as far as weapons. I think the Chargers would have a decent between
absolutely
Hunter Henry, Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. I think that's a team that would have good weapons for him too. And I think his wife probably wouldn't mind living in LA.
Right. The only knock that I've heard as an objection to the Chargers is the offensive line is not as good as some of the other ones in the NFL. And at this stage of Brady's career, I mean, where Brady is best is pre-snap. I mean, him, Peyton Manning, they know what's going to happen on a play before it happens. Scrambling, mobility, not Brady's forte. So if you have a weakened offensive line, I could see the Chargers not being the best fit. But that said, all the reasons that you said, I think are valid for Brady ending up there. I do not think he will end up in Tennessee.
I agree. And I don't even think that would affect Derrick Henry much one way or the other. The difference between Brady and Tannehill, whoever was the quarterback there, I think he's going to get the carries. He's going to get the touchdowns. He's going to break some long runs. It's just, are you willing to sacrifice, the catches compared to like, CMC is the obvious outlier, but even Zeke is more involved in the run game now. Cook is involved in the run game. Obviously, Kamara is heavily involved in the run game. So, I mean, in the pass game. So they're getting their reception totals are, triple what Henry's are going to be.
Okay, so other guys other running backs that that I'm struggling with to rank in the first round of best ball. So the next group of running backs that go off the board, you've already talked about CMC, Barkley, Elliott, Cook being the first four. We've already hit on Derrick Henry and Kamara, whether we think they belong there. All right, so the next grouping is Aaron Jones, who we talked about before, Mixon, Chubb, and Jacobs. And then I'll include Leonard Fournette in there too, as I have him in the same tier. Which one of these running backs do you have the most confidence in? Obviously, we already talked about Aaron Jones, but so talk about Mixon, Fournette, and Josh Jacobs. How would you shake that group up?
My favorite is Mixon. I believe in the talent. I believe the way he came on late last season. And I think with Joe Burrow under center, and I don't know, do you assume AJ Green's leaving? Do you think he can be somewhere else?
It's funny. Right before we got on, I got a notification that a Bengals reporter said the team either wants AJ Green to stay, and if he wants to play under the franchise tag just to be 1 year and be the highest paid guy at the position, they will do it, or they will give him a long-term contract, but they're not going to franchise him if he doesn't want to stay. So they're giving him the option. So they're saying, if you want to stay, we want you. So they've come out and said that. So
I think that could be a really good offense.
Yeah,
I think their defense sucks. So like they can find themselves in shootouts. I'm a Burrows believer. Like I know it was only like one great season at LSU and one like okay season before that, but I believe in that kid. And I think that offense is going to be good. And I think Mixon has the highest ceiling of the guys you mentioned in that range. I mean, obviously, the Bengals, so nothing is guaranteed.
Right, nothing's. Well, when you say Joe Burrow, sometimes I've heard that argument. Oh, it was only one season, but sometimes it's not. It's not the size of the sample; it's the magnitude of the sample that matters. Yeah. And when you're throwing 60 touchdowns in one season, it's right. Yeah, like if
in the SEC, this wasn't like against like St. Mary's. Like this is to put up 60 touchdowns in the SEC, or even like. Baker and Jalen Hurts and those guys took advantage of some really weak defenses in their conference, that in the Big Ten, where it's just like the shootouts and nobody plays D. The SEC has quality defenders, like first round studs, and he lit them up. Like Clemson, he lit up Clemson. And look at that kid Isaiah Simmons, just ran a 4.39 at linebacker. That's insane.
Again,
I hope the Giants take him at 4. I don't know if they will, but
I don't think he'll last till then, but he might with all the QB fever going on. And, just getting back to the point, it's something you said before and how I talked about magnitude of sample. I always think about it in like basketball terms, where if a rookie comes into the NBA and through 4 games, and it's only 4 games, averages 40 points a game. It's not that, hey, you could say, hey, it's only a 4-game sample, but if he's coming in averaging 40 points a game in 4 games, sometimes the magnitude of the sample makes a difference. And I think that is a great reason to believe in Burrow and the Cincinnati offense. How about Josh Jacobs? The Raiders are talking about how they want to get him a little bit more involved in the passing game. When Josh Jacobs came out, I thought of him as a pass-catching running back.
I did too, because
right.
he did that well at Alabama, which is surprising that they didn't involve him in there. And
so is Josh Jacobs a first round pick in your eyes in fantasy?
Yeah, I think he probably is. Like, I think with the depth of, at least the way I look at it now, and obviously there's a lot of time for things to change. I love the receivers from rounds like 3 through 8. So yeah. I wouldn't, if I'm at the turn, like, and if you're having to choose between a Josh Jacobs and say a DeAndre Hopkins.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're doing.
That's a really tough call, but I think I would go Jacobs because I feel like I'm going to be able to get someone in round 3. I might get Odell in round 3 with possible bounce back, or I love Debo. I love AJ Brown. I love DJ Metcalf. Like I could probably sit here and name 25 receivers that I'd love to have on my fantasy team, where I don't know if I can name 12 backs that I am.
No, once you get into the 3rd round, you're looking at, Mark Ingram at the top of that next heap and the rookies. And obviously the rookies are no sure bet. And then you're getting into like the Raheem Mosterts of the world, the David Montgomery's.
Ingram. I hate Mostert. I like Mostert, but do we really trust Kyle Shanahan to give it to one back that just
no.
I was like an undrafted journeyman? Like, I don't.
Absolutely not. So, all right. Well, I think that takes care of the 1st round. And, there's definitely some good wide receiver options in the 3rd round as well. So, all right, now we'll move on to a topic that I'm very interested to hear your take on. Again, I'm with special guest Chris Felicetta, fantasy sports writer, most well known for his Bestball Chronicles last year on Rotogrinders. An amazing read. Even though it's from last year, I strongly advise anyone listening to this podcast to go back and listen to Chris. He'll pin it on his Twitter, so you can go check it out. Really well written, entertaining piece to check out, and hopefully he'll do something similar this year with Bestball. All right. Coaching changes in the NFL. You are a Giants fan, aren't you?
That I am. For better or worse.
So what better place to start with Joe Judge? I don't think anybody saw this coming, even experts. No one knows much about Joe Judge other than he works with the special teams at New England, and that was only because it was reported after. Anywhere you want to start. What is your take? Are you happy as a Giants fan, and what do you think it means for the team and for fantasy?
I mean, my first reaction was who? I never heard of the guy. Like, I followed football pretty closely, and I had never heard of the dude. And so I was concerned at first. I'm like, this guy's never called plays. Like, I wanted a young progressive offensive mind. And then when they bring in the Clapper from Dallas as the offensive coordinator, the guy hasn't called plays since 2012, I think. And no one's ever accused Jason Garrett of being like this brilliant offensive play caller. So, but then like I heard Judge's press conference, and he is an impressive dude. When you listen to him speak, like you understand how he won them over in the interview. But I mean, I don't have any real feel for what his offensive system is going to be, what his play calling ability. Not that he's going to be calling the offense, but it's a tough one. Like I'm going with an open mind. I think he's an impressive guy when you listen to him speak, but I think it's impossible for anybody to glean how Joe Judge is going to affect the Giants fantasy players.
Do you think that it's an upgrade? I mean, is it a perceived upgrade over what they already had? Are you glad that sometimes I'm almost happy with an unknown rather than a known Mike McCarthy, what the upside is. So I'm, if I was a Giant fan, I would not be happy if it was someone like Mike McCarthy or if Jason Garrett got the head coaching job. So
no, it was anybody but Garrett was the way I was looking at it. But I also think like Mike McCarthy and Riverboat Ron in Washington, I look at those guys as they're like, if you put in like DFS terms, they're cash game hires. Like they're guys you would play like if you for the floor. Like they're gonna marginally improve your team. they're going to make you respectable. They're going to clean up the culture. Like, but are they going to be the young, progressive, offensive mind that takes your team to the next elite level? I don't know about that. So I was in favor of hiring somebody new over a retread. I mean, it remains to be seen whether Joe Judge is that guy. I still think Gettleman is a disaster in a lot of ways, the GM. So I don't know how I think he actually drafts well. What he is terrible about managing his assets, managing the cap. His free agent signings have been atrocious. His I think the return, what he got from Beckham was atrocious, but I got to give him credit. I hated the Daniel Jones pick at the time, mainly because I think they 100% could have got him at 17, maybe even at 30 with their third pick in the first round. But he looked a lot better than I expected
again, with the thoughts on that and everything you said, and I thought that was a really smart analogy with that the cash game, the upside's limited. You're never going to win a Super Bowl with those guys. I mean, Mike McCarthy should have won 3 Super Bowls with peak Aaron Rodgers. Obviously,
he never impressed me in Green Bay. I thought he undersold what he could have gotten out of Rodgers' prime.
And as far as Daniel Jones, we say it in fantasy all the time that if you don't worry about ADP, if you feel like the guy's not going to be there on the next round, and we truly, you never know. And now you could say, okay, yeah, he could have been there at pick 17, Daniel Jones. But if you thought there was any chance that he couldn't be, you take him.
Yeah, I mean, I get that as the philosophy. I just didn't see another team that was taking a QB in that space. There's only so many teams that have open QB slots, and I don't know. I'm not going to kill him for that because I think Jones is actually a better fantasy quarterback than he is a reality quarterback at this time. Like, he had a lot of spike weeks last year. Like, he was good. Like, as a Giant fan, after watching him in preseason, I'm like, okay, this kid's actually pretty damn good. Right. He's not afraid to sling it. Like, he kind of reminds me, for better or worse, he's got a little bit of Jameis in him. Like, like no conscious. He turns the ball over too much, but he will make the aggressive.
He'll improve on that.
Like,
think about this. Who would you rather have? Think about it. You're a Giant fan. Would you rather have Sam Darnold or would you rather have Daniel Jones? Not for fantasy, for reality.
For fantasy, I would 100% say Jones. Just
of course.
I actually like the Giants' weapons. I think Golden Tate, Shep. I like Slayton. That's the one thing I give Gettleman the most credit for, is finding Slayton in the 5th or 6th round, wherever he was drafted. Like, I think that kid can actually play. Like, I think he's going to be a very sneaky play this year.
Here's where do you think Slayton is going right now in Bestball? I'm just curious where you think.
My guess off the top of my head, maybe like 7th round.
Yeah, he's going on the 7-8 turn right now. Okay. That's exactly where he's going. So so the market definitely feels like I can see him being moved up into the 5th round as the hype gets going on. I mean, he certainly has more upside than some of the other players. Like right now, the 5th round receivers are the Robert Woods, Calvin Ridley, Deebo Samuel. So I could certainly see
Deebo's lasting to the 5th.
Say again.
Deebo is lasting till the 5th.
Yeah, right now Deebo Samuel.
If that holds, I'm going to own a lot of Deebo this year.
Yeah, Deebo in the draft, the most recent one I'm in, went at 6.2.
Wow, I would go deep. I wouldn't hesitate to go Deebo in the 4th round.
Yeah, no, I agree with you there. Well, here's the receivers that are going right now in the 4th round. Cortland Sutton, Amari Cooper, Allen Robinson, Cooper Kupp, Kenny Galladay, Juju Smith-Schuster, a little bit risky in the 4th round, but I understand it. So you can see why. I mean, the guys that are going around Deebo are DJ Shark, Calvin Ridley, DK Metcalf, Adam Thielen going after Deebo. So you could see why in early drafts.
So deep, yeah. Receiver is really deep. I think that just underlies the point that you got to go running back early this year.
Yeah.
If you're getting guys like Shark and Deebo that late, like Shark and Deebo, if they were top 5, you certainly wouldn't project it, but if either of them ended up a top 5 receiver this year, would it surprise you?
No, absolutely not. And I think like Deebo is going to be that quintessential like finish as like wide receiver 13, wide receiver 9, wide receiver 8 on the year, wide receiver 14, like that high end WR2, that low end wide receiver 1 for like the next 5 or 6 years. And again, if he has a wide receiver 3 finish, you're not going to be surprised at all. Yeah. A little humble brag in our keeper league that we're in. I will be dangling Deebo out there to the crowd at a 16th round keeper price. So,
my gosh, right? You could work me over on that one.
Now. Yeah, I have an embarrassment of riches on that.
God, I'll never forgive myself for trading you Lamar for a 12th round keeper last year.
I could take no credit for it, as I did not want Lamar at that point. I wanted Baker Mayfield for the 16th round keeper. So even though it looked good for me, I give myself zero credit.
What what do you think now? Do you buy as a little buy low on Baker this year? Is best ball?
Absolutely. Yes. I think that there is a real thing as the sophomore slump. I mean, think about the conditions in which the Browns had to operate last year. At the current price of Baker Mayfield, I'm going to be owning a lot of him. I mean, he did own the skills that we saw him display. His rookie year, he had, one of the best rookie performances ever in limited action. So I'm all in again, especially with Kevin Stefanski as the coach. That's the coach, that came over from the Minnesota Vikings as the offensive coordinator. The Browns wanted him originally before they hired Kitchens, and they ultimately decided to go with Kitchens. So they did get their man. I'm back in. How about you?
I am too, and I think Stefanski's a good hire. He just seems like a really sharp dude. He was in Minnesota for 14 years, survived like 3 different regimes. Just they were keeping him around. He's the Ivy League guy, and I think that he's going to bring a bit of stability that Freddie Kitchens didn't to that offense. And I'm interested to see how you think that's going to affect Chubb, because obviously Dalvin Cook was a beast under Stefanski last year, and I love Chubb. I think Chubb is one of like the most elite talented backs in the NFL, but the Kareem Hunt came in last year late and really ruined his upside on a week-to-week basis.
I'm glad you said ruined his upside, not his value, because yes, and Kareem Hunt, by all accounts, is going to be back there. They're going to tender him. And what NFL team doesn't want 2 good running backs, correct? So
yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, so I think that it's great for Chubb's rushing, but the passing, I mean, when Kareem Hunt came back, it literally cut Chubb's passing down work in half. Like literally.
And Chubb's a capable pass catcher too. I was kind of surprised that they basically made Kareem Hunt their James White. I was kind of surprised they used him that way, but.
And again, it's only because, the NFL coaches don't see it the same way we do. They see it as, hey, let me, let me not step on the throttle with this guy in midseason. So, I think that we're probably going to see it a little bit similar. That's why Nick Chubb is a very polarizing first-round pick. He has been going in the first round of best ball drafts. But going back to your other question is, just anecdotally, you said you haven't jumped into these best balls yet, but where do you think Baker Mayfield is going in these best ball drafts?
I would think really late, because you can't, based on last year's season, you can't really project him as like a top 15 quarterback, I don't think. So once you get past the elite quarterbacks and then the perceived second tier, people wait on quarterbacks. So I would guess maybe like round 12, 13 or something.
Yeah. Now remember, in best ball, people do draft 2 quarterbacks because you can't hit the waiver wire. So it is a little earlier. Right. So he's going around 9, round 10 in best ball, but that lines up exactly what you're saying. He'll probably go around anytime in the double-digit rounds. You can take him. He's probably around QB 16 in most rankings.
Yeah.
And ours, we're going to have him a little higher. We're going to have him at QB 14, but that's right around what you had predicted for him. He's going right around guys like Matt Ryan, Josh Allen. Again, people wait on quarterback forever. I anticipate Josh Allen in our rankings is going to be QB4 this year. I know it's a little aggressive, but I have him ahead of Russell Wilson for the.
Wow. I might have to keep, if you guys are ranking him that high, I might have to keep him in our RT season long league, our keeper league.
Well, think about it. Russell Wilson, he does have those huge games, but I mean, he disappears from a fantasy perspective for long stretches. They're committed to the run, the offense. They just don't go with him. They wait till the second half. And now Russ,
it's so frustrating. It's so frustrating how they coordinate in Seattle there.
Yeah, I mean, I'll probably get sanity checked from the rest of the group when I publish the rankings on Josh Allen, and they'll probably push him back down to number 7. But I can't think of anyone other than, the big 2 and Deshaun Watson that I'd want ahead of him, for fantasy.
Yeah, I mean, his rushing upside is right there, after after Jackson. There's probably not a better. I mean, and Kyler, I think Kyler's really interesting this year. Where do you have him, Kyler Murray?
QB6 right after Russell Wilson.
Because if you look at the past 2 years, you had Mahomes getting drafted in the 9th or 10th round, wound up being hands down the best quarterback in fantasy 2 years ago. Lamar went in the 9th or 10th round last year, was hands down the best fantasy quarterback. I feel not that he'll last that long, but I think Kyler has the best opportunity to make that kind of leap this year.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
If they draft This was just, I forget what analyst was saying this, but that they could be interested in CeeDee Lamb. Like if they got CeeDee Lamb to pair with him, that dude is a beast. Like if that happens, I'm all in on Kyler.
Well, that's a perfect transition to our last topic of the day, which is rookie talk. So we just came out of the combine, a lot of interesting storylines. From a rookie perspective, when you talk about fantasy football, now landing spot will dictate a lot of this, but who are going to be your top 5 rookies for fantasy that you're most interested in? Both, running back, wide receiver, I think would be, we're not talking about super flex where we're going to talk about the QBs, but which one of the rookies given landing spot, who would be your top 5 in order right now?
I mean, I think the obvious, you can have the obvious 3 running backs, Jonathan Taylor, Dobbins, and Swift. I can't pretend like I have a hard, fast ranking of those right now. I mean, watching Taylor run that 4.41 yesterday in the combine is just like,
he's fast.
What more could you want? Because the production was obviously there. So it's not like he's just a combine warrior, like, like a guy who takes advantage of a workout. Like he had back-to-back 2,000 rushing yard seasons in college. Like that dude is an animal. I mean, like, and it's all landing. I don't think you can have a ranking on those guys until you know what teams they're going to be on. Because let's say,
what team would you like to see Jonathan Taylor go to? What scheme do you think? I mean, he could probably fit in any scheme, but which team, if he landed on, are you like he is the 1-1 in dynasty rookie picks?
I think Atlanta would be an interesting spot for him because they have a pretty good offense as it is. And the fact that Devontae Freeman's not going to be there this year, that's like a wide open backfield, like Judge Ito and BJ Hill, that like they're not competition for Taylor. So if Taylor's there, it's his show. So that I think it would be an interesting landing spot.
What I'm interested to see if some of these rookies end up in non-ideal landing spots. Like for example, if John Taylor lands in like say Miami in a perceived weaker offense, and someone like Cam Akers, who is probably like 6th or 7th on a lot of rookie boards for running back, if he lands in the perfect spot in Atlanta, like does he shoot up the board? How much does landing spot really affect the ranks? I mean, it does affect, especially at running back. At wide receiver, I tend to ignore it a little bit more, just stick with the talent. But at running back, it really does affect since the window for rookies is so short. All right, so you have Taylor one right now. You have you have Dobbins and Swift. So then how about at 4 and 5? Is it the 2 big receivers right now?
I think it has to be. I mean, like I think if you're not, I mean, obviously where they land will dictate it to some extent, not as much as it will with the running back, like you said. But I think those 2 guys are they're elite talents, especially Lamb. I think I'm really high on Lamb. So if he landed in the right spot, I could see him having a major impact as a rookie.
Yeah, and again, the right spot will just be with a QB dependent and an opportunity for sure. Whereas running backs could probably produce in any situation there. I think there's we're going to get into some rookie talk in depth as we get closer to the draft. I hope you'll come back on. I always enjoy your takes on that.
Yeah, man. Anytime.
All right, man. Believe it or not, we've done 30 minutes, and we're trying to keep these pods right around there. I could talk to you for like 2 hours about this stuff. I really enjoy the conversation. But I'm here with Chris Felicetta, fantasy sports writer. Again, most well known for his Bestball Chronicles last year on Rotogrinders. Chris, you're promising the people you're going to do something similar again this year?
Yeah, I mean, I got a good amount of feedback from that. So I think I'd like to, once the best balls start going in earnest, after everybody's hit their landing spots, to chronicle some more teams, hopefully on Best Ball 10 that you were just talking to me about. Now that draft is been usurped by FanDuel, I think seems like it's going to be the prime spot to make those teams. So I'd like to chronicle some entries there once I get a chance.
Absolutely. And what I was telling you off airs and with the title in this podcast is that we have a big special announcement that we are going to be doing a Best Ball championship contest ourselves, and even doing a cut line contest on the NFFC. And there'll be more information coming about that, but we're going to challenge the listeners. They can participate and play against me, and they could also play against the Geek. And you could be in a fantasy football league where again, it's this: you draft against us and then you set it, forget it. There's no maintenance. We're going to have them for $10 drafts, and we're also going to have them all the way up to $150 drafts, and we're going to give out some coupon codes for that too, so you can get $25 off those entries, and those will be in later to come. So look for those Best Ball championship drafts against myself and the Geek coming up in the future weeks. All right, you are listening to the DFS Army fantasy.com podcast, sponsored by Thrive Fantasy. Thrive Fantasy is one of the best prop apps. It's an either or app. Chris, you should go check them out. If you download their app in the Apple Store, the Thrive Fantasy app, it is an awesome game where they give you, they have everything from PGA to NBA. They even have esports, and you get points for predicting under over. So they'll say LeBron James over or under 28.5 points. And, whatever side is favored, you get more points. And then you accumulate those points to win in these overall contests. It's literally one of my favorite games out there right now. That's Thrive Fantasy.
All right. Interesting. I'll definitely have to check that out.
Yep. All right. For at Chris Felicetta. That is your Twitter, right? At Chris Felicetta.
At Chris Felicetta. Yep.
Spell it for
Felicetta.
One more time, because I talked over it.
Yep. It's Chris, Felicetta. And I'll pin that series of blog posts that I did about the best balls last year. And if anybody wants to check that out, and thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
Definitely. We're going to have you back on there again. We just had one question before I sign off. It says, what is the best platform to play on? And that is easily for me, Bestball 10s. Just Google it. They're the same people who run the big national contest, NFFC. That's bestball10.com. I believe that's the website. Just Google it and go on there. They're formerly known as the MFL, My Fantasy League 10s, but they were purchased by the parent company over there. All right, Chris, looking forward to doing this again. I'm at Alan Seslowski. This is the DFSArmy.com podcast, season-long fantasy football. See you next time.